Good morning to you all. I'm Sophie Adenot, the head of the communication department of the European Space Agency. First and foremost, I would like to wish you all, those that are present, but also those in line, a very happy new year to you and your loved ones. It's a pleasure actually to start the year with you for the annual press conference of the Director General. So I'm here with the Director General, Dr. Josef Aschbacher, as well as our ESA directors. We have Carol Mondell, Science Director Online, and we have Dominique Guéléron, who will represent Simonetta Kelly for EOP. As always, we will start with some words from our Director General, and upon the conclusion of these opening remarks, we will then take your questions. Please, for those that are in the room, indicate that you want to take the floor, and for those that are online, please indicate on WebEx or the WhatsApp loop that you wish to ask a question. The replay will be available on our website and chats after this press conference. But with no further ado, I now give the floor to our Director General.
Thank you, Anne-Sophie, and a very warm welcome also from my side, and a very happy new year to all of you, but also a big word of thank you for last year. I will show in a minute some of the achievements of last year, and many of you have helped us to get to this success in terms of reporting and spreading the news to the different corners of Europe and beyond into the world. And I really would like to thank you for the excellent work you have done collectively. We have just reviewed the press feedback and the feedback from the different reporting, and it was extremely positive last year. Thank you for that. But also thank you to my own team. As Anne-Sophie was mentioning, the directors are with me here at this press conference, but obviously this is hundreds and thousands of people in ESA, but also within industry and across Europe who are achieving these results. So let me give you a short briefing, and I will divide this into blocks. So one is a very short recap of what has happened last year. You have reported to it, but I just recall some of the highlights. But then the main focus obviously is of what happens this year. So the first slide shows a number which you have reported widely. 22.3 billion was the subscription given by the member states in Bremen to the ESA Ministerial Conference 2025. I don't need to explain the number, but I really would like to say that this has been a historic moment, a historic achievement from many perspectives, because this amount of funding has surpassed all expectations and has surpassed any funding we have achieved in ESA in the last ministerials. But also, it's the first time that we have achieved a funding subscription that is at the level of the proposal of the Director General, because usually, as I've said many times, the subscription levels are in the order of 90%, maybe 92%. So this is really quite remarkable. You see the figures here, plus 31% compared to CM22, or plus 17% if we account for inflation. Also, I have reported already, but I think it is worth recalling. Last year, we launched 46 satellites and missions. 46 satellites and missions. And this is an absolute record for ESA. But also, if you put this in the wider context, this is a very high number of activities we had. You see some of them on the screen that are going over. There are 11 missions that are of larger size, ESA missions like biomass, like Sentinel missions, Galileo missions, and others. There are 9 commercial missions. That means commercial in the sense of industry-led missions, like SpainSat, NG, and several others, especially in telecommunications. And 26 missions that are third-party missions like Iridae, Greek Constellation, and others, which we have also launched last year. So a very large number of satellites. But it also shows that ESA is working on both domains, on the more classical, more complex, sophisticated missions like biomass, like Sentinels, like Galileo, but also in the new space world, where we are producing mid-sized, they're still quite sophisticated missions, the Scout or Iridae or similar ones in terms of its performance, but smaller in size, and sometimes in large numbers where we develop several satellites of the same kind. And again, this shows that ESA is fully in the new space age, and we are developing space infrastructure across the board. Of course, we are not only launching satellites, there are ground segments, data systems, services, science, and many other things that are going hand in hand with our missions, but obviously the missions are a very visible element of it. And one of the faces you just see by walking by or moving by on the screen is the launch of the Polish ESA astronaut of Polish origin, Sławomir Uznański, from the within the Ignis mission. Also, this counts in this number of 46. Also, we had a number of remarkable successes from a science perspective, so for data that have been released or other installations that have been made. You see here the STRAC antenna. We have inaugurated a new antenna in Australia. As you have been reporting, we have released data sets, large data sets of Euclid. JUICE was flying by Venus. BepiColombo had its sixth Mercury flyby. We showed the first images of biomass, but also some other satellites. Again, you have all reported them, but just to recall some of the really wonderful highlights of last year. And also last year, we celebrated the 50th anniversary. We have got a new member state, Slovenia, as the 23rd country of ESA to be an ESA member state. The ESA strategy was released early last year in March, ESA strategy 2040. And the ESA-EU relationship, of course, is an ongoing process, but has really been strengthened through many occasions, many collaborations, also at the level of the Commissioner, Mr. Kubilius, but also obviously with the teams of DG DEFIS, led by Timo Pesonen and all his colleagues, and also other services of the European Commission, including also other EU entities like Parliament, Council, with whom we have worked very closely together over the last year. One point I would like to highlight is the launches we have carried out last year. 7 successful launches of Ariane 6 and Vega C, 4 Ariane 6 launches, 3 Vega C launches. The inaugural flight, as you know, was the year before, on the 9th of July 2024. But I'd like to point out also the figure on the right-hand side. And this is something that is quite remarkable. You see here several curves. That means over the last 20 years, there have been a number of heavy lift launchers coming to starting their services. And what you see here is the first 5 flights of these heavy lift launchers. So you can see for yourself the different launchers that have been established over the last 20 years. And at the bottom, you see Ariane 6. At the bottom means in this case actually at the top in terms of performance of ramp up, because what it shows is how long it took for 5 flights to be carried out successfully with a launcher. And as you see, Ariane 6 has been the fastest of all the major heavy lift launchers that you see here of achieving 5 successful flights. What does this show? Of course, the first inaugural flight was successful as well. But what does this show? It shows that the engineering of Ariane 6, of the Ariane 6 launcher system, the rocket, the ground segment, and all the elements related to it, has been extremely well done. And I really would like to highlight this and say that because the first flight was successful, which is, of course, not a given. You all know that first there's a roughly 1-to-1 chance or probability, I should say, of a first launch to succeed based on statistics. But also all the other flights have been successful, and the ramp up has been going very fast. As you see, 17 months between the first and the 5th flight. So I really would like to highlight this as a big achievement with compliments to the teams involved, Ariane Group, Arianespace, CNES, and obviously ESA as the overall responsible and the manager. This is something that is really worth mentioning, and that's why we are showing you this graph. Now let me go to 2026. So this year, what are the major achievements? We have organized them along the 5 goals of the strategy 2040. You are very familiar with those by now, and I will show some of the highlights coming up this year in a few seconds. First one, protect our planet and climate. Last year, we launched 22 Earth observation satellites. These are part of the 46 I mentioned before. But this year, we plan to launch 48 Earth observation satellites. Altogether, there will be more satellites launched in ESA, and I will not disclose the figure right now. It will come at the end of the presentation. But only in Earth observation, we plan to launch 48 satellites. And you see in the small print the details. 33 of them are IRIDE satellites for the Italian constellation, 11 Greek national satellites. There are larger ones like MTG, MeteoBEST-G, Sentinel-3C, and Flex, which are also on the launch list of this year. And this is obviously an absolute record of satellites in the Earth observation domain alone, as I said, in addition to other satellites that are being launched. So really, you will see that we have a very busy year in all directorates, but this is highlighting the plans for Earth observation, which is protecting our planet and obviously our climate. But also on planetary safety and space safety, we have a number of highlights planned. You see the new Fly-Eye telescope, which today is in Matera, and it will be inaugurated, and the operations will start on the new site in Sicily throughout the course of this year. Hera, our mission to the asteroid Didymos and Dimorphos, will arrive at the asteroids. It's a couple, it's two asteroids, one circling around the other, and will start the measurements of the impact that happened through our colleagues of the NASA DART mission that we will measure in all detail with the Hera mission. Cluster, there are two cluster satellites that are at the end of their lives, and we are targeting re-entry of clusters 3 and 4 towards the end of this year. On Explore and Discover, the second goal of our ESA 2040 strategy, the highlights are coming. There are, first of all, we have today 15 missions in operation, and we have 12 missions in preparation. These are the missions of the Science Directorate, and you see a few of those missions, of those satellites that are being displayed now on the screen. Euclid, already with first data sets released. SMILE will be launched this year. Plato will be launched next year. The mission is getting ready for launch at the end of this year. Gaia has already fulfilled its mission objectives, but the data are being released and being utilized. BepiColombo, Solar Orbiter, and others. So we will continue to produce world-class science with our data, and our scientists across the world will certainly discover and make publications based on this extremely important data source for many domains. On Explore and Discover, so on the exploration side, this week on Monday, we had a press conference with Sophie Adenot, our astronaut, who is the next one to fly to the space station, not earlier than 15th of February. We are doing this obviously in cooperation with the ISS partners and with NASA in particular. I don't need to recall or to repeat some of the messages that have been given there, but certainly a highlight. This is a long-term mission, 6 to 8 months, as you know, and we're very much looking forward to seeing this launch and obviously all the science and all the experiments that are being conducted on the space station. On the right-hand side, you see the European Service Module. This will power humanity back around the moon as part of the Artemis 2 mission, again under the control of NASA, but Europe is providing an extremely important element, European Service Module, obviously, in addition to other aspects, and very much looking forward to support our colleagues and partners across the ocean on the implementation and the conduct of the Artemis mission. The date of the flight obviously is under control of NASA, so I'm not saying anything in this regard. This is for NASA to return, but what was published is that it is in the Q1, Q2 of this year. As I say, the dates are the responsibility of NASA. Strengthen European autonomy and resilience, the third goal of our strategy 2040. We will continue our ramp up of Ariane 6 and Vega C. We will have the first Ariane 6-4 flight coming up very soon. There will be a press conference by Arianespace on Monday next week, and they will give more details on when these dates are. So I do not want to preempt what they will go to say next week. But just to reassure you that we are on a good path of further ramping up our Ariane 6 and Vega C launches and making sure that we reach the target schedule or the target cadence very within the next years. On Space Rider, we are planning a full-scale top test later this year, and the European Launcher Challenge, which has been highly oversubscribed at the ministerial. As you know, I have been proposing 420 million. We got more than 900 million subscriptions, so more than double of what I was proposing. Also showing that our member states and the ministers are very committed to these new launches through the Launcher Challenge. And this is the next generation of launches we are building up together with industry, obviously industry being in the lead, but from our side, supporting the process along the way through the various measures in the European Launcher Challenge. And I will show later on some of the milestones related to the Launcher Challenge. Strengthening European autonomy and resilience. We are launching the LEO PNT, or called Celeste, in-orbit demonstration in the first quarter of 2026. This is the first of the smaller satellites. That's why it's the daughter's name of Galileo, which is Celeste, in order to build up this constellation to enhance European PNT resilience, robustness, and accuracy of our Galileo system, making sure that we continue to provide the world's leading and most accurate signal in terms of precision from a Galileo or from a navigation constellation. Also on European autonomy and resilience, the ERS program, European Resilience from Space, which we prepare in preparation or in advance of the future European Union EOGS activity will be implemented. We will start the various industrial activities as planned. But also I'd like to recall that phase 2 of element 1 is open for subscription by design until November 2026. We have a first milestone with our member states in the February meeting of our program boards, but until November 26, the program remains open. This is an exception. It's the only one that is left open. Also realizing that, of course, here we are addressing user communities from the security and defense domain, and therefore we give a bit more time to add funding to the already oversubscribed ERS program of the ministerial. As you would all recall, we got 1.17 billion subscription, 1.37 billion subscription based on a proposal which I made of 1.1 billion, so oversubscription already, but the envelopes are still open for further subscription, both of the Earth observation part, but also obviously of the others. Boost European growth and competitiveness. Here are some of the numbers. This is more for you to take with you in your reporting, but just to recall some of the figures. You have all seen the EIB announcement, European Investment Bank in Bremen, where the bank has announced a space tech EU lending facility of 500 million euros. I understand from the presentations and the meetings we have with the EIB that there's room for more, but this is the first phase of funding that has been provided. And there, obviously, once the first phase is being implemented, future updates or future additions could come. On the left-hand side, you see some figures related to the economic impact of our activities. 260,000 job years and 28 billion euros of GDP impact have been created based on CM22 subscriptions. Then the ESA BIC network, Business Incubation Centers network, has last year had its 2000th company or startup that has been incubated. Of course, this is cumulative. That is the sum of all the startups over the last 20 years, because last year we celebrated 20 years of ESA BIC network, which is the largest business incubation network, certainly in Europe, maybe even beyond. And on the ESA Investors Network, we have today 85 members, and you see here the period between May 24 and May 26, where from this network, so members of this network, they have invested 1.23 billion private funding in it that complements public funding into space companies across Europe, which is, of course, a large increase compared to the year before, about a 50% increase compared to the year earlier. So you see also on the attraction of private funding, Europe makes really gone very good, strong progress. Inspire Europe, the fifth goal of the ESA 2040 strategy. We have reinforced our partnerships internationally with many space agencies. You see some of the flags here of partners with whom we have concluded agreements or who have been very active in establishing projects and programs. I'm not going through them one by one, but just to say that this is really an expanding network we have. It's part of our strategy endorsed by the ESA member states to strengthen, to widen our cooperation. Canada obviously being already a cooperating state of ESA and therefore participating in the ESA programs as a cooperating state and also subscribing 4 times as much at the Bremen ministerial compared to the previous ministerial, huge increase and very significant commitment also of Canada. But globally, I think this really shows that ESA is also an attractive partner internationally, not only within Europe with our institutional and industrial partners, but also outside Europe. And this is something I'm very proud of because ESA delivers obviously space hardware and successes for Europe, but also in international cooperation. And this is a priority for Europe to also strengthen this partnership. This is something I initiated a couple of years ago, and now it really shows the fruits of it across the board. Inspire Europe, education and outreach. You see here that in 2025, our education activities engaged 145,000 students and 154,000 teachers, which is part of our continuous exercise to make sure that our results and our technologies that we develop are spread across Europe. And on the right-hand side is something very nice that we have intensified over the last years. That means that most of our establishments have organized open days. That means we open the centers for 1 or 2 days to the public, and they can really visit some of our facilities. And last year we had about half of our centers open to the public, altogether 20,000 visitors who have come, but also a very high number of ESA people who have been engaged in showing and explaining the work they do on a daily basis. So this is really something that attracts a lot of attention. Visitors coming from actually across Europe or sometimes outside Europe to visit our centers in ESTEC, in ESAC, in ESRIN, in ESOC and other places where we have these open days, and something very important, including also, by the way, here in the ESA headquarters, to my understanding, the first time where we have opened headquarters and also allowed people to access some of the activities we do right here in Paris. Now let me come to the budget figures. This year's budget of ESA is 8.26 billion total, of which 5.56 billion are ESA activities and programs. You see here the contributions from the different sources. 64.2% is income from ESA member states through our normal process that is organized through the ministerial conferences. There's 3.1% other incomes. This is, for example, contributions of PEX members. That means new member states that are preparing to become future members. On the left-hand side, you see income from other third parties, again from our member states. These are third-party programs like Camilla, like the Greek constellation, IRIDE, and some other activities. So altogether, if you add up the 64, the 3.1, and the 8%, almost 8%, it is more than 70% that is income from our member states through different mechanisms. 23.4% is income from the European Union through our cooperation agreements that we have in place. So this is the amount expected today for obviously programs like Copernicus, Galileo, Iris Square, and several other activities. And there's 1.4% income from EUMETSAT. Obviously, the share of the EUMETSAT contribution varies according to the program implementation. We have concluded the development of METOP-SG and MTG. That's why the numbers are relatively small. Of course, when we are in the full development cycle of MTG, METOP-SG, this figure is obviously much higher. But as I said, we have developed the satellites and they're being launched as you have seen. This is the budget allocation by domain, so how it is within the different directorates and programs. By far the largest is Earth observation. I've explained before how many satellites we are going to launch this year, and obviously this is also associated to the budget that is allocated to it, 2.4 billion this year Earth observation, which is roughly 30% of the overall budget, but also space transportation, human robotic exploration, connectivity, secure communications, navigation, a large part, obviously navigation being co-funded to a large extent by EU funding or funded by the European Union, products, technology support, space safety, commercialization, basic activities, the science program, and the general budget. You see all the breakdown here. I'm not going into details, but just to give you roughly the distribution of the funding allocation across the various programs. ESA transformation is something that is ongoing. I've said it a few times that that space in general is developing extremely fast. It's accelerating in all corners outside Europe, within Europe. Also, ESA is really adapting to that, and I have taken quite a number of measures in place within the agency to make sure that we are on top of it and that we are going with the external challenges, and we are meeting them very, very well. So here are a few figures just to highlight as an example of some of the activities we do. We have reduced time to contract by 50%. That means we are double as fast compared to 2022 in implementing new contracts with industry. And of course, this is the implementation of one contract from the beginning of a procurement process to signature is one element. Obviously, this acceleration also goes into project implementation, reviews, interactions with industry, and many other aspects that is part of this overall transformation process. Also, time to hire. That means hiring new talent. We expect this year more than 400 new colleagues to join the European Space Agency. We have announced some of these figures also at the December Council, and we have reduced the time to hire by 40%, not 50%, but 40%. That means we are almost double as fast compared to the past. That again is the time between opening a vacancy notice until going through all the selection process. Sometimes we get hundreds of applications for a single post, going through the selection process, interviews, and then signing a contract. Again, we have been speeding up this process by about 40% compared to the past. And this is only one example. Here I'm only showing the blocks of our transformation pillars that we are addressing. The first one, of course, is ESA internal organization, our processes and internal mechanisms and procedures. In short, we are simplifying them, we are accelerating them, but always making sure that quality and accountability are pillars that we are not touching, that we are delivering high quality spacecraft or space infrastructure. And obviously accountability is a top priority because we do spend taxpayers' funding, and therefore we need to be accountable, and all the euros need to be obviously very well managed and accountable the way how they're being spent. We have a very robust mechanism in place. Just want to recall that the external audits that are taking place every single year for many years now have really giving us a clean sheet in terms of our management of the finances of the member states. Also, transformation, this is something that we will really emphasize this year, is both with industry and with member states, that the transformation is not only internal process of ESA, but also obviously the interaction with member states, decision processes, the time it takes until a decision is made, the amount of documentation that is required to make a decision. So all this bureaucracy, if you might call it in a simplified way, we are working on this with our member states, and they're actually asking us to do exactly that. So to really make sure that we are lean and efficient. And the same applies with industry. Of course, industry carrying out most of our work from a technical perspective, but the interaction with industry, again, there we're looking into streamlining activities. This will be an emphasis of this year. We will start it in particular through a number of activities. So it's not yet at the stage where we can give you KPIs or results. This we will define together with the stakeholders, but certainly we will keep reporting about the progress on these elements. But extremely important for me personally, for all of us in the agency, because we have to be on top of it and make sure that we are adjusting to the challenges of the global landscape in space, which develops very fast. Now let me summarize a few highlights of this year, what's coming up as next milestones. You get 2 slides on this. The first slide for the first semester, the second slide for the next semester. I've already mentioned the launch of Sophie Adenot as part of the Epsilon mission, not earlier than 15th of February. Artemis 2, obviously, with a strong European contribution through the European Service Module, obviously under the control of NASA. Themis, we are planning a hop test at the S-Range Space Center in the first quarter of this year. On the bottom, you see the Ariane 6 for first flight. That means the first flight with 4 boosters, which is a commercial flight. As I said, I leave it to Arianespace to give details on dates and the launch cadence of the other Ariane 6 flights. But this Ariane 6-4 is a qualification flight with the 4 boosters. So therefore, a very important milestone. Celeste, I mentioned already, LEO PNT, Space Rider top test, I mentioned already, both happening in the first quarter of this year. In the second quarter of this year, the Greek small sat program satellites being launched, the FlyEye telescope being installed in Sicily, the end of the astronaut reserve training, again at the end of this of the second quarter of this year. The SMILE mission is launched within this time window, which is indicated here on a Vega C launcher. Cyprus has already got all the agreement from these member states to become an associate member, and the formalization is expected in the second quarter of this year. That means the decisions also on the side of Cyprus and the deposition of the credentials of Cyprus with the French government, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the M7 selection and Arrakis adoption is expected in the second quarter of this year. In the third quarter, MTG I2 and MTG I2 mission is expected to be launched, obviously on Ariane 6. The cluster 3 and 4 will be re-entering. As mentioned before, the JUICE Earth flyby is expected on 12th of September. Then there's a solar eclipse. Obviously, this is not something ESA is doing, but there's a highlight that will be observed in many places, and certainly something worth mentioning. But then we will have launches of Sentinel-3C and FLEX and MetroBEST-G again in the third quarter of this year. Very important launches for the various users and communities. Then in the last quarter, Hera, as mentioned, will arrive at Dimorphos and Didymos. BepiColombo will arrive at its final destination in Mercury and start doing the measurements. Galileo will have the L15 launch of the Galileo satellites. Then Euclid, we plan data releases in October of full cosmology data release. This will be a very large event. Also Gaia, data release in December, and Plato will be ready for launch, but not launched, ready for launch at the end of this year. And here at the very end, a few conferences and events. I'm sure many of them are well known to you. There are many more, hundreds of more or thousands of more events that are taking place, but these are some of the bigger ones. I expect many of you to be there. And obviously, we will report as we are participating in those events. ESA Councils, as you know, we always give a debrief at the end of the ESA Councils and to keep you up to date in order for you to present and prepare. Here's the slide I promised at the beginning. So this year, we are planning up to 65 new satellites and missions to be launched. 65 compared to 46 last year. Again, an absolute record compared to previous figures. Extremely busy year for ESA. You see some of the highlights that are coming up very soon here on the slide, going through this conveyor belt. Very important year for ESA, and I really would like to use the occasion to thank you all for your good reporting. Thank you for your attention, and I hand back to Anne-Sophie for questions and answers. Thank you from my side.
Thank you very much, Joseph. We're now ready to take your questions. I will give the priority to the journalists present in this room. Do you want? We have many questions already on the chat, but if one of you wants to ask a question, please state your name and the name of your media outlet. Yes, please.
Sorry, French TV, France Télévisions, Nicolas, Jeanne, Jean-Christophe Batteria. One of our question is about Space Rider. Have you a date for the first test in scale 1? Last year we talked about this year, where we are.
Thank you. I hand over this question to Tony Dolka-Nielsen from the Launches Directorate.
Thank you. I don't have the answer right now. Can I come back to you with the time frame?
Yes, thank you. And we have a question for Jen.
I know a bit more about the Themis program. You said it was due to be in the first quarter of this year. It was announced to be in the end of last year. Are we up to be optimistic to see this first launch, Themis, and the launch of Themis in Sweden? Yes.
Themis, now it's in Corona and it's under snow today. So we are waiting for spring to make the test. Was that the question? Yeah, okay.
I will ask some questions from online, and then I will give you the floor back. There are actually other questions on these themes. Many of you are asking, we have questions from Torsten Kriening from Spaceport Global on the cadence. Let me remind you, as the Director General said about the cadence of Ariane 6, that this is something that is to be said but by Arianespace. So I will give the floor to Tony. Maybe he wants to say something, but we cannot give you a precise number of flights for next year. Neither can we give you exact date. It's for that to announce it.
So, as Sophie said, we will not. It's normally Arianespace who's talking about the manifest of Ariane 6 and our view of the one of Vega. But this year or last year we did 4, and we have the intention to roughly double that number. And then we should attain our cruising level of 9 to 10 launches per year in 27. So that's the plan.
Thank you, Tony. Now a question from the room. Yes, please.
Kai Rienecker, ARD, German Public Radio and Television. I would like to pose a question about your cooperation with NASA. As there has been serious cuts in the NASA budget by the Trump administration, does that affect your cooperation with NASA? Are there special projects that you wanted to take out that are put into danger now, concerning, for example, the Mars development samples you wanted to take back maybe from Mars? Could you elaborate a little bit on that subject, please?
Thank you. The cooperation with NASA is good. We're working on a daily basis on the space station, for example, on Earth observation, on science, on exploration. So we have many domains where we are working together. You're right that the budget proposals that have been presented last year, and decisions are being made, have an impact. Obviously, this is the nature of budget decisions. But I have already mentioned it at the ministerial conference in Bremen, that, for example, I've received a letter the day before the ministerial conference from NASA to confirm its key contributions to Rosalind Franklin. There are 3 contributions. I can elaborate if you wish, which have been confirmed. This was very important news for us because the Rosalind Franklin mission, as you know, is prepared for launch in 2028. On the Gateway, we are working with NASA hand in hand in its contributions. Mars sample return is probably a bit more complex because there we understand that, at least according to today's plans, the mission will not go ahead. And there we are evaluating exactly the ESA portion of it and our contributions. If you allow me, I would like to hand over to Daniel, because most of the cooperations with NASA are on exploration. There's some also in space science and some in Earth observation, but the majority is on exploration. And Daniel, I'm sure, can elaborate a bit further on the impact or the cooperation which we have in this domain.
Thank you, Joseph, and thanks for the question. Starting in low Earth orbit on the International Space Station, DG just announced the upcoming mission of Crew 12. So you see work is ongoing. What is clearly a challenge until the end of the exploitation of the International Space Station is the full utilization, meaning all the science activities, and this is something we're looking into it. And we are from the European side putting priorities on which experiments we will be able to conduct, and this is something we are discussing with our partners. Having said that, again, we have just celebrated 25 years of permanent human presence on board of the International Space Station, 25 years of incredible cooperation, and we will also overcome the challenge, whatever the utilization scheme will be on ISS. Second, on Artemis, for sure there is a reformulation undergoing in the United States, and I think this is up to NASA to comment. There is not only a budgetary dimension, there is also a priority dimension. There is a big focus on human exploration of the moon and related surface landing. As you have seen also from the news on the other side of the Atlantic, we are on a daily, if not hourly, I would even say, exchange with our partners what this means for our cooperation. But there is a strong commitment from all the international partners, not only US and Europeans, but all the partners to continue the excellent cooperation we have on the Artemis program, and the Artemis 2 mission ahead of us with the European service module is a good example of that, where Europe is delivering, and I would say even over-delivering when it comes to performance and timing for the European service module. And on Mars, I think DG said it all. Mars sample return is currently not planned to be continued. It's a fact. It's also a fact that Europe cannot afford on its own a full Mars sample return mission. And therefore, we are in the process of reorienting our contributions we have planned. You know that we planned the Earth Return Orbiter towards a Mars atmospheric mission. This is something we're discussing with our member states, and this will enable us future missions towards Mars with more accurate landing, heavier landing. Having said that, our key priority, DG mentioned it, is Rosalind Franklin in 2028.
And sorry if I may add to this, Rosalind Franklin will be the first mission in the world that is drilling into the surface of Mars, and therefore taking samples underground, about 2 meters underground, to search for possible ancient traces or traces of ancient life or existing life. So this will be quite a milestone, quite an important one, and I think this is something very important. And I should also, since you asked about NASA, NASA has an instrument on board also, Rosalind Franklin, called MoMA, which will do exactly some of the analysis on this search for possible life on Mars.
If you allow me, there are additional questions from your colleagues online about the collaboration with NASA. So I will continue on this topic just for a few seconds. We have Jay Keegan from nasaspaceflight.com that is asking a question for the Director General. Have you had the chance to meet with Jarek Isaacman since he took office as NASA Administrator? And there are two questions about our astronaut from Marta Meliskai, TG24, and from Wim de Massener from VRT-NWS Media. Sophie Adenot will be the 22nd European astronauts to fly aboard the ISS. What are your wishes for Sophie? And how long will it take to have the names of the European astronauts announced at the ministerial meeting who will fly on the Artemis mission? Is Sophie Adenot ready to launch earlier to the ISS? Now NASA is considering to return Crew 11 earlier due to a medical issue of one of the Crew 11 astronauts.
Okay, thank you. Quite a number of questions. First one on did I meet the new NASA administrator, Jared Isaacman, since he was inaugurated? No, not yet. It was just a couple of days before Christmas, as you all know. But my teams, in fact, just before the press conference, I've discussed with my team to arrange for the very first meeting, and this is being prepared as we speak. But I'm really looking forward. I think this is something is very important on a personal level, but obviously on an institutional level between ESA and NASA. Sophie Adenot, what are the wishes to Sophie? To wish her success and do many experiments and come back with new inspirations and new inspirations to the world, not only to Europe but to the world. And the focus of our astronauts on the space station is really to advance science and technology, and this is what she's doing. She has a very high number of experiments planned, and I can only wish her good luck in doing that and coming and inspiring also our community by through her activities. Artemis, when are the astronauts being prepared? Obviously, this is in the hands of NASA, as you perfectly know. We will discuss this with NASA in the months and months to come, and therefore we solely depend on these joint discussions which we have. So today there's no more news than what you have probably heard in Bremen. Some of you have asked similar questions, but what I just for the ones who have not reported or not been in the Bremen Ministerial Conference, I did announce there that the astronauts we have 3 allocations from NASA for astronauts to the Gateway, and these 3 allocations I've decided to give to ESA astronauts of German, French, and Italian nationality, and the first of those will be of German nationality. So this is unchanged, or the status is exactly the same, but there's no further details since Bremen.
Any question from the room? Yes, please.
Hello, thank you for today's conference. So I'm Guillaume Langin from Space French media Ciel et Espace. On December 29, ESA has cancelled the call for proposals to procure commercial cargo transportation services to the ISS. Why this cancellation? And can you update us with the current plans of ESA to develop a European LEO spacecraft capable of carrying cargo into space and coming back through the Earth atmosphere safely? Thank you.
Daniel, please.
Thank you. On your first question, it's in fact very good news for Europe, because we have issued a call for proposals for seeking commercial transportation services to the International Space Station, because we had to bring benefits to the ISS partnership against our utilization time and our astronaut flights. This was done in the past against delivering European service modules. These are used today towards the Artemis program. So we had an obligation on the European side. And this is why we have opened this call. Meanwhile, during this call, we managed to restore a new barter with our NASA partners. And this new barter was then decided at the ministerial conference in November, was endorsed. And now we have a new solid ground how Europe compensates for the so-called common system operation costs. Sorry for this CSOC abbreviation, but this is a way how the ISS partnership works, which allows you to have utilization time and future missions for Europeans. In this new barter scheme, we have now a reduced requirement with regard to commercial transportation services, and we have introduced the use of the LEO cargo return service as part of the deal, meaning that the United States will accept Europe to deliver LEO cargo return services as part of the ISS cooperation. And I think this is excellent news. It means that we will close, and we have closed, the initial process, and we will issue a new one based on the elements I have provided to you. This brings me to your second point. Where do we stand with LEO cargo return service, which is a top priority? It will provide ESA the cargo transportation capability to low Earth orbit. We will initiate this year phase 2, meaning that we will go to the demonstration mission towards the International Space Station, ideally, or whatever platform, but as soon as possible. We aim at signing the contracts with industry this year for phase 2 in autumn this year. And it will allow Europe to bring cargo to low Earth orbit, and it's a novelty, bring also cargo back on Earth.
Thank you, Daniel. There are now 3 questions online regarding SMILE. 2 of them are from Leah Albrecht from Deutsche Welle. I'm going to read them. The research on interaction between solar wind and radio communication could also be used in military fields. The SMILE project was approved about a decade ago. Would the geopolitical tensions stop further EU-China cooperation on such space project? The second question of Leah Albrecht is, NASA still bans any kind of cooperation with China. SMILE was built in China and will be launched by an ESA rocket, which inevitably also has American components. How did ESA avoid conflicts? And thirdly, from Paul Marks, how might SMILE inform those new space companies who are talking about launching data centers in low Earth orbit? Could SMILE tell us if computer memory banks can really be expected to reliably survive swamping by coronal practicals? A question for Carol Mandel.
Okay, I'm very happy to take those, Anne-Sophie, if I'm audible online and in the room. Should I go ahead?
Yes, you are. Go ahead,
Lovely.
please.
Thank you. So let me begin to answer Leah's questions. The SMILE scientific mission, including the Chinese involvement, has been assessed and approved by all relevant export control authorities throughout the project, from inception all the way through to and beyond launch. The launch itself from French Guiana is obviously done under the supervision of all relevant French authorities, and preparation for the launch is underway at the site. When it comes to US export control regulations, ESA as a whole has an express policy to at all times comply with regulations and embargoes. And in fact, the SMILE payload, which was developed by ESA, contains only technology that is commensurate with all European and US export control restrictions. I should say that, of course, the way that the SMILE mission was conceived was using the scientific program mechanism, so a joint agreement approved at Council, mandating the Science Directorate to see if we could work in collaboration with China on purely scientific projects. It was a bottom-up process with the scientific communities in our ESA member states in China. The mission was then put together. The spacecraft, of course, was provided by the Chinese with close collaboration with our ESA teams, but the whole mission has been put together in our STEC facility in the Netherlands, and that's where all the testing has taken place. So this is very much done in Europe with that leadership. I should also add that the cooperation has been very fruitful. As I said at the beginning, all regulations and ESA and international security frameworks have been diligently applied throughout the mission preparation and development. And the cooperation is scientific, so it targets space science, and it's under the cooperation agreement for peaceful purposes that ESA and China have had for the last 20 years. To answer the specific question on the data centers in space, I think that's a very nice question. And of course, we do have some very interesting instruments on board. We have 4 instruments. One will be the first ever wide field soft X-ray imager, and that's led by the United Kingdom with other European institutions, and that will obtain unique measurements for the regions where the solar wind impacts the magnetosphere. We have a Canadian-led ultraviolet imager, which will study the global distribution of the auroras. And this will be the first mission ever that we will have full coverage 24/7 of the globe. The 2 Chinese instruments, the light ion analyzer and the magnetometer, will measure the energetic particles in the solar wind and the changes in the local magnetic field. So I think what I would say for data centers in space, we do already know from data centers on the ground that our silicon gets hit with cosmic rays that come from deep space. Space, up at the upper atmosphere and beyond into space is a very hostile environment. We know that from many of our previous solar space science missions. And of course, within ESA, we have a very strong team on space weather and planetary protection that DG has already alluded to. So I think the scientists will be able to bring a lot of new insights. The final question on the geopolitical side, this is obviously something that our DG leads on. And in terms of the SMILE mission, this is one of several that we have in collaboration for purely peaceful purposes with China. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is from Véronique Guillemard from Le Figaro. As you said, 2026 will be a record year with 48 planned launches of Earth observation satellites. What share will be reserved for European launchers? And will ESA use foreign launchers, or will it play the European preference card?
No, thank you. It is a large number of launches, but I think it also underlines how important it is to have autonomous access to space. I don't need to elaborate on the importance of it and what we have gone through in the last 2 years. We had a launcher crisis, which I called in the year 2023, early 2024, when we did not have access to space with our own launchers. After the Ariane 5 was at the end of its service, and Vega C had an incident, as you recall all very well. So now we are in a very strong position that we have our launchers back on the launch pad, Ariane 6 Vega C, but also new ones to come. The Launcher Challenge will offer new launch opportunities. Of course, we are waiting and eagerly looking forward to those first launches to happen. I expect them to happen this year by some of them, and they will gradually ramp up, obviously, launch capability. How much of these 48 are not launched in Europe? I think this is what your question is. The ESA launches, of course, the ESA satellites will be launched on European launchers. This is known, but there are some of them that are launched outside, and this depends a bit on the satellite, on the arrangements, and the partners who are funding those. Many of those are third-party missions, and they are actually the ones that decide together with us the launch capability. I do not have a breakdown in front of me of what this means, but we can work on it and establish these figures as far as known, because not all of it is probably known to the detail, but this is something that we can provide.
Yes, please.
Bonjour, hello, Daniel Chrétien for Aerocosmos. I will continue with this kind of question about one mission in particular, LEO PNT. Can you confirm that this mission will be launched by an electron rocket from Rocket Lab? And why did you choose to fly a critical technology demonstration mission on an American rocket? I suppose it was because you have no more choice, because you have to launch as quick as possible.
Yeah, I'm looking for Javier, whether he's online, or Tony. Javier is not online. Yes, I can confirm it is launched on Rocket Lab, but Tony is better placed maybe to give the reasoning behind. This was a decision made by our member states, but Tony can elaborate. Thank you.
Yes, the manifest of Vega, which was the good launcher for this mission, is completely full, and it was necessary to find an alternative. So that's the reason why it launched on Rocket Lab. Thank you.
A question from Julio Miravals for apuntelego.es. Last days was told that Starlink is to go down about 70 kilometers the level orbit of 4,400 satellites, almost half of their actual satellites, because LEO is too much populated. ESA is planning a record year on satellite launching. How do you face the overpopulation in orbit?
So thanks for the question. Indeed, we are very concerned about the deterioration of valuable orbits around Earth. And indeed, this is a finite resource, so there's not infinite resources available in orbit. So this is why ESA, as the first space agency in the world, has released a zero debris approach internally, zero debris charter, as it's also known. We have more than 180 signatories that are contributing to this and restrict themselves to zero debris, meaning what we bring into space, we bring back. So this is the situation as we see it. Collision avoidance, increasing number of collision avoidance is a concern for ESA. And so we need to become more smart here as well. Thank you very much.
Question from the room? Yes, Anne Bauer, please. You have to turn the mic on.
Right.
Thank you.
Hi, you said you will have a budget of 8.26 billion, on which you have around 5.5 billion for the program. So what are the 2.7 billion left for? Is it just for ESA? So it makes a transformation ratio, which is very, very important and very questionable from different members.
Thank you. You're referring to slide 23. So the budget of ESA is 8.26 billion. This is the income side. That means the contributions to ESA member states, and the other part is from the European Union, 23.4%, according to the graph on this slide. And you have the breakdown on the slide, so I can refer to this figure. But the overall budget of this year, 2026, is 8.26 billion.
Okay, my question wasn't clear. What I'm saying is that in your slide, you showed that only 5.5 billion are going to programs, missions, and that the rest, I didn't know. If I am a state, I'm giving €1 to ESA. Do I give, I would say, 75% of this euro to this program and 25% of this euro to ESA administration boutique? I don't know how to say.
No, let me. Maybe the slide is not very clear, so I would like to explain it. Yeah. So our budget of ESA is 8.26 billion, and the income side, this is the income, comes to 5.56 billion from ESA program activities. This is typically the ministerial conference subscriptions, to be clear. While other funding sources are the European Union, which is a bilateral agreement. So this is the income, it's not the spending side. I just want to make crystal clear. Then we have third-party income, we have EUMETSAT, and then PEX countries in particular, that means others. So this is only the income side. I think your question was how much of our budget goes to industry and how much is administration. Is a different question. It's not on this slide, but I can give you the figures. The average figure of the ESA internal costs, that means costs of ESA, that is both the cost of the administrating the funds, but also we are having laboratories, the operation of our satellites, we have test facilities, we have major facilities that we are running and that we are funding. So all these activities of ESA is 15% of the budget, and 85% is spent with industry on average. But industry means externally, industry, universities, whatever other partners. So 15% is the cost of all of it. That is including our operations, including our test facilities and some of the installations we have, which are rather big, including, by the way, Kourou, which is also one of our larger, I would say, installations we have.
Thank you. Next in line online is Emma Gatti from Space News, and Emma is requesting the floor. Emma, you have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
We do, but not very loud. Could you please try again to
How
speak?
about now? Can you hear me
No,
now?
it's not
Yeah.
really better.
Okay. Test. How about now? I will type the question then, okay?
We can hear you now. It's
Okay,
better. So
fantastic,
please go
fantastic.
ahead.
Okay, thank you. Happy New Year, everyone. Just a couple of quick fact checking, and then a couple of questions. Joseph, you mentioned that we're going to go up to 65 new ESA missions this year compared to the 56 of last year. And understood correctly, 48 of those one are going to be Earth observation. And then I was wondering, the parameters that you're using to count those 65 missions is the same of 2025, which means not only strictly ESA mission, but also third-party industry supported by ESA, etc. So this is just to fact check. Tony, for you, you mentioned 9 to 10 launches cruising level for 2027. I suppose these include both Ariane 6 and Vega C. But I just wanted to double check. For Daniel, you mentioned that you are in the process to reorient the Mars mission towards a Mars atmospheric mission to make sure that this mission can carry on independently. When we will have update about how you will decide to rearrange this mission. If I remember correctly, in December, you gave us a date of February, but I wanted to double check if it's still the same. And then a couple of more elaborate questions for the DG. The first one about the year C. You mentioned that in February you're going to meet with the member states for discussing the few milestones. And I was wondering if you could elaborate on that, which type of milestones will be discussed and how maybe you will integrate if there will be new nations that have subscribed. That's maybe a question by already now. Do you have new member states that have subscribed to phase 2? And then the last question, that is the hard one. Last year, also other ESA missions that have been launched with Falcon 9, HydroGNS, for example. And I was wondering if you or Tony will feel comfortable in elaborating on what you think is the main difficulties when it comes to ESA and it comes to launching an official ESA mission with a Falcon 9 or a Rocket Lab. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emma. I give the floor to Josef.
Thank you, Emma. Also, Happy New Year to you, and glad to hear you. So yes, I can confirm the figures that we have put on the slides. The 46 of last year and the 65 apply the same criteria, so they are comparable. And yes, they do include third-party missions like Iride, Greek, Camilla, or other satellites that are being developed. Then the 9 to 10 launches per year, this refers to Ariane 6. Just to be clear, for 2027 as a target mentioned by Tony. And I leave Daniel on the ERO. Then you asked me on the milestone ERS phase 2. No, this is ongoing process. This has been announced from the beginning. So this is part of the discussions we will have with our member states. And is going through the usual processes, Program Board of Earth Observation, and obviously then the Council. There's no indication yet today of who and how much will be provided. But as I mentioned earlier, the funding is open until November 2026. So therefore, we still have time, but we kick off this process in February. And then again, there was a question for Tony. I'll leave to Tony, but maybe Daniel was next. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Based on the level of subscription we received in Bremen, we will have to set the number of priorities in the Terra Novae program for the years 26 to 28. And yes, by end of February, we will have the main priorities set, and this includes the Mars domain. As a consequence from that, we will have to see the exact definition on this Mars atmospheric mission and the pace of implementation, and this will come in sequence and may take a little bit more time.
So this is a bit of a difficult question. How we feel about launching ESA missions on foreign launchers, and maybe it should be asked to the users, but I will give a perspective from space transportation. This is really what is motivating us to really concentrate on planning and ramping up as fast as possible. And you saw the curve, we are doing it. It's an extremely fast ramp up because we want to ensure Europe's access to space. And we want to ensure that we can launch all the European missions on European launchers. We are doing this with Ariane 6 and Vega C, and we are looking at how to increase the cadence of these launchers. And we are also developing new launchers in the European Launcher Challenge. And here we are also going very fast. We already started before the ministerial, and we are now entering into stage 2 tendering. And we are following these launchers, which will make their first or second attempt this year. So I think the European space transportation has never been as rich as it is today, and that is very good because the need for European space transportation services has never been as big and it will be increasing. So we are doing all we can to be able to offer the European launch service. Thank you.
Josef Aschbacher wants to add something.
Yeah, no, thank you. Fully confirming what Tony said, of course, but let me just underline, Emma, and I really thank you for the question because it is something extremely important, but it also shows how important it was to make the Sevilla decisions of the Sevilla summit. That means that on one side, guaranteed access to space of Ariane 6 and Vega C, on the other side, preparing the future through the European Launcher Challenge. And these two decisions there have been more decisions made, but these core decisions are so important. I'm so happy that our member states have really agreed on this and also funded it in fully at the ministerial conference. I think this has been a huge achievement that shows collectively that Europe is committed to really ramp up and have launch capability as needed. Of course, we all look also forward to the new launches to come through the Launcher Challenge. But again, the decision of member states to oversubscribe by a factor of 2 the European Launcher Challenge is a very clear signal that the European decision makers, ministers have recognized the importance of it and put a lot of energy, that means funding, into making this a reality. So I'm very happy of the decisions and the funding that have been made to achieve that. Of course, we are working, or industry is working on it. We together with industry is working on it, but we are on a very good path. If I compare the situation today from 2 years ago, I think we have made huge progress and we're on a very good path. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone from the room? Race?
I would like to know if there is so much energy in developing I². Could you say anything about it? Because if you have many launchers and nothing to launch, it's not very interesting.
Laurent, could you please answer this question?
Thank you very much. There is a lot of energy on I². We closed out the SRR, the System Requirements Review, by the end of last year. We kicked off the service review end of November, and this will be conducted until end of January. And we'll lock ourselves for the next 2 days with SpaceRise to kick off the Rendezvous 1. So I do expect that we will have payloads on the launchers and make good use of the Ariane 6 work done until now. Thank you.
This should actually also answer Jean-Baptiste Huet from BFM Business question that was asked online. Please, Jean-Baptiste, feel free to let us know if this answers your question, but you were asking for an update on the I² program. Next is Peter de Selding from Space Intel Report, and he has requests to take the floor. So Peter,
Hi.
could you please unmute yourself?
Is the audio okay?
Very well.
All right, thanks very much. Good morning. A couple of questions. First, Joseph, in December, a dark web actor said it had breached ESA security and stolen a bunch of information that it said was valuable enough So it was putting it on the market for sale. Have your forensics gotten to the bottom of this to determine how bad the breach was, whether anything significant was stolen, and what lessons you take from that? A second question to clarify from Laurent Geffard, the rendezvous 1 point for IRIS², I think, was due by the Space Rise Consortium in the middle of January. Is that still the schedule, or has that slipped a little bit? And a last question, is ESA involved in the investigation into the anomaly on the Spainsat NG2 satellite that was disclosed by the satellite's owner a couple weeks ago? Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. I give the floor to Josef Aschbacher.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, regarding the first point on the dark web actors, so these member states have been duly informed by us, by the executive, and we are obviously in contact with the relevant stakeholders. We have taken all the necessary actions regarding the breach of the external servers outside the ESA firewall. I should underline that these were external servers, as you have seen in the communication, and of course to ensure ESA business continuity. We have I've established a group to really look into this in more detail. And I'd like to ask Eric and then also Massimo Mercati is the head of the ESA Security Office to further elaborate. Eric, please.
Thank you, Josef, and good morning. The judicial authorities having jurisdiction over these cyber incidents are informed, and they have initiated a criminal inquiry. ESA is fully cooperating with the authorities. These authorities will manage, as is always the case, the communication regarding the case. As those authorities will be in charge of the criminal proceedings, everybody must be aware that all communication should be handled very cautiously in order not to inappropriately interfere with the investigation. Massimo?
Thank you, Eric, and good morning to everybody. So ESA has immediately triggered all the necessary action, including the analysis, the forensic analysis, and any mitigation measures. In the context of constantly increasing the cybersecurity threat scenario, ESA is continuously enhancing its cyber protection accordingly.
Thank you, Massimo. Next question was for you, Laurent, on IRIS².
Thank you. So yes, the rendezvous 1 was supposed to start on the 12th of January, Monday. And in fact, we are kicking off tomorrow and Saturday. So we are 2 days earlier than planned. We will discover the content tomorrow. So I cannot judge for how long the rendezvous 1 will take until successful closure. When it comes to your second question, Spainsat, we are aware there's an anomaly. We've made ourselves available. I do not have details yet to report.
Thank you. Is there a question? Yes, please.
Good morning, Gaël Lombard for French newspaper Le Parisien. You said that ESA halved the time to contract last year versus 2022. I don't know how the calculation was made. Maybe you could clarify it because several years could have been used. And maybe the time to contract used to be longer because of COVID-19 or delays of the first year of this decade. Thank you.
No, thank you for this question. I should probably say that this time to contract figure, this 50% reduction, is only one of many, many figures that we are looking at, but it's a very visible one, and therefore it's probably worth mentioning. So the 2022 reference was compared to many years. So this was the average over the last 10 years or so. So it was not a one-off figure because of COVID or something. It was really a long-term average, and we have significantly reduced it by a factor of 2. That means by 50%. We have been constantly working on it step by step, if I may say, but we have reached last year this 50% reduction. And it's it's one figure, but what I said a bit earlier in the presentation, it's really the whole process of interacting with industry, of management of contracts that we are reviewing. And we are looking into all different steps in order to do that. The time to contract is the very first step of an industrial contract. Obviously, what we're also looking very closely into it is the review cycles, the duration of reviews, the documentation that is required, and so on and so forth. So overall, the message is, yes, we are absolutely concerned about having maximum quality, so top quality of our products, as we always have, if I may say so. So this cannot be compromised. On the other side, accountability is a top priority because we are spending taxpayers' money. But within this, there's room for improvement and simplification. This is exactly what we're doing. We could call it in a simple term, debureaucratization as much as possible. And this is exactly what we are looking into. And this is an ongoing process that is not finished. This will be ongoing, and we will keep pushing it. I'm very committed to it myself because I realize that things change very fast in the world. ESA is managing many contracts with European industry. I would like European industry to be very robust and very strong, and therefore also very responsive in terms of timing and being dynamic. And this is something that we do within ESA first, and now we go outside to industry and member states to continue this process, obviously in full alignment and on request of member states.
Thank you, Josef. A question from Teresa Pultarova from space.com. What is the situation with Envision? I understand that concerns exist that the launch window might be missed if work on the VENSAR instrument doesn't start fairly swiftly.
Thank you, Anne-Sophie. I can take that question. So Envision is our next major flagship mission to Venus. It is an ESA-led mission, and it is in collaboration with NASA. As you know, when the presidential budget request was published last year, there were 19 missions in the science portfolio that were potentially impacted. 16 of those we believe we can manage the impact, 3 of which would have required recovery actions. That was LISA and Envision, which are 2 adopted missions, and New Athena, which should come for adoption in front of our member states in 2027. So my teams have been working very hard over the summer and leading up to the ministerial with our member states and with our industries to look at possible mitigation measures should those budgets come to pass. Now, we also know that there has been a Congress proposed budget and a Senate proposed budget, and we now also see the minibus budget that was published this week. So we are in constant contact with NASA. On Envision, we remain in normal collaboration with NASA on Envision. It is covered by a Memorandum of Understanding, which is a very serious legal document between NASA and ESA. But we also appreciate that NASA do continue to have some financial challenges. As a mitigation, should those challenges be realized, Europe has been looking to see whether we have alternatives. Now, we are fully aware of the orbital deadlines that we have. We are still scheduled to launch Envision in 2031 so that we can make the correct orbital rendezvous with Venus. But our deadline for launch, of course, is 2033, because after that, the solar system alignments are not favorable for launch for several years after. So we will keep you informed as discussions continue. As I say, our collaboration with NASA remains strong and positive. Missions like LISA are in the budget request, and we'll continue to discuss with our member states how we can continue to deliver this mission. But we're very well aware of those deadlines. The JPL team have already worked very hard for some years on the VENSAR, and they've just been through their PDR. So it's business as usual, but with a keen eye to mitigate any future risk.
Thank you very much, Carol. We're 5 minutes to the end of the press conference. There's one question online, but in the room, yes, please, Nicolas.
Yes, Nicolas Chateauneuf, French TV. Among the companies participating in the European Launcher Challenge, which ones are the best positioned to meet their goals? And do you think that all the companies will be able to achieve orbital flight in 2027?
Tony, and he has an answer to you as well on Space Rider. So maybe, Tony, you can answer both questions at the same time.
Yes, first on Space Rider. So the full-scale test is foreseen end of March this year, and launch readiness towards the end of 27. So a launch around that time. So that was for Space Rider. On the European Launcher Challenge, we actually received 12 offers, and there was a critical evaluation of these offers, and the 5 of them was deemed to pass the evaluation criteria in terms of financial and technical credibility. And so, yes, we believe that they will do their increased capacity before, or they will do their first launch before 27, and the increased capacity that is subject of the European Launcher Challenge before end 28. That's now we are going into second stage tendering, and that will be confirmed in that stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. There's a question from Jeff Foots from Space News. Jeff, we've just answered your first question, so I will ask the second question. At CM25, some countries, notably the UK, did not fully allocate the subscriptions for the European Launcher Challenge to specific vehicles. Is there a deadline for them to decide their allocations? Tony?
Yes, we are going, as I said, into this second stage tendering, and the big amount of the UK subscription is in the to be allocated box, and we cannot place contracts before they move it to a program. So that's the deadline. There is no contracts without UK taking a decision to allocate this money to a specific project. And that should happen in the coming 2-3 months.
Question online from Martin Morala from astroaventura.net. Will there be any help from ESA to the ISRO during the Gaganyaan G1 mission? Are there any constraints in the ESA extract as NASA is suffering in their DSN? Rolf?
Thank you. Indeed, what I can confirm is that we have many cross-support agreements with leading international space agencies, among those ISRO and NASA. We also are requested to provide support to the ISRO Gaganyaan program. Thank you.
There's no further question in the chat. We're 1 minute away from the end. Do you have any question in the room? Maybe that you want to ask? Last one? Yes, Marie-Ange.
Marie-Ange Sanguy, magazine Espace Exploration. What about the mission for Sophie and Raphaël Liégeois? At the beginning, they are one for Sophie, and just after Raphaël, and have a meeting in ISS. And with this 8-month mission, when Raphaël will launch?
Daniel?
Yes, thank you. So indeed, Raphaël Liégeois was the second member of the class 22 to be announced for a long duration mission to the International Space Station. We are having discussions with the international partners at the level of the Multilateral Crew Operations Panel, the MCOP, which is doing the exact allocation of the missions to all the actors. And right now we are defining, we have defined a slot for Raphaël to fly no earlier than 2027, but certainly not later than CM28.
Thank you, Daniel. This concludes our annual press conference of the Director General. You will obviously have the replay available on our website and on the chat within an hour or two. We thank you very much for your presence, either on site or online. Again, we wish you a very good year, and we're looking forward to continuing informing you as the day passes. Thank you so much, and have a good day.